Here at home, millions of devotees now in Manila for the annual traslacion. So let's bring in one of our guests, and we have here with us Mark Calano, theology and philosophy professor at the Ateneo de Manila University. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, so, let's talk about this Catholic devotion to the Black Nazarene. And you've done many articles about this and studied very extensively. How did this all begin?
The devotion to the Black Nazarene, of course, started first as a normal devotion like your rosary or a particular devotion to a particular saint. But through the years, my particular devotion to the Nazarene started when a Quiapo priest invited me to Quiapo, specifically for me to see the performance of the devotion, often frowned upon by so many Filipinos or even theologians or those who study theology.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But why is the devotion to the Black Nazarene so fervent? It hasn't waned over the years. In fact, the anthropologist I was speaking to earlier has actually said that devotion has grown.
Yeah, it's actually growing every year. I think a lot of the devotion speaks to the everyday life of Filipinos. And in fact, when you look at the devotees of the Black Nazarene, most of them represents the cross-section of Philippine society. And this tells us a lot also about our nation, not just to those who participate in devotion. It seems like the image of a suffering Christ talks to us and resonates very much with our everyday experience as a people.
It speaks to the Filipino. Now, another important question that everyone likes to ask is, why is the image black?
The image is black. It's really black, no?
Hindi siya nasunog.
Hindi siya nasunog or nothing happened that turned it black. I think it's being black is part of the long tradition of really darkening images, even in Mexico. In Mexico, they have a very unique devotion called Cristo Negro, which is really a black Christ, no? And it is this image that actually went to us here in the Philippines, so that nothing happened to the Black Nazarene. It's really black because through the years, it's black.
And it's also really made of a dark mesquite wood,
yes,
right?
it's a Mexican wood that we're actually not even sure of what it is, but it's already dark.
All right. Now, do you think that joining the procession reflects the strength of Catholic faith in the Philippines? I mean, you look at the crowds there. There's more people out on the streets now than there are on Good Friday or on Christmas.
Right. I think it reflects a lot about the poor man's faith or ordinary Filipino's faith. Many of us who study theology are amazed at the performance of the devotion in Quiapo precisely because it goes beyond or against even a lot of our theological training or acceptable orthodox performances of religiosity. But what it says a lot, more than anything, is how a ordinary, non-educated, perhaps urban poor Filipino expresses and recognizes their faith in a God. And therefore, a lot of it is informal, and a lot of it actually goes against a normal performance of devotion.
Right. You don't see this practice in other Catholic countries so much, right? Certainly not as fervent and passionate as this. A big part of the devotion is to be able to touch and kiss the image, and in turn be touched by God. Some people say this is idolatry because you are venerating a statue.
Yeah. A lot of those who participate in devotion to Quiapo knows that there are many statues. There's no just one statue. In fact, as the procession is going on right now, the Vicario is out, but there's another statue in front of them in Quiapo Church. So that a devotee of Quiapo already knows that there are already more than one statue. If it's actually based only on one statue, that would be idolatry. But people know they're touching wood. People know they're touching something material. And so people know that it's not Jesus, that it's not God. But they also know that this material reality, here carved in the image of a Christ, can become a gateway to encounter the sacred. And for them, that's a very, very significant experience.
Now, regarding that experience, Archbishop Cardinal Tagle said, veneration must come with true love, honest service, and unity with Jesus, and not just fanaticism.
Yeah.
So for the devotees, how do they know they're not just engaging or immersing themselves in fanaticism, but really deepening their faith through this exercise?
A lot of the devotion in Quiapo is manifested by extravagance. People are just extravagant in the performance of the devotion, in the effort that they actually put in the devotion. And many look at this extravagance as a form of fanaticism. But what we need to understand is to actually look at the extravagance not as a form of fanaticism, but as an expression of what I'd say in the Bible as the widow's mite, which is the 2 coins that the widow actually dropped in the treasury that Jesus actually noticed when the widow was actually giving all that she has in the performance of her devotion to God. So I think even Quiapo should be understood that way. It does not become fanaticism because the focus of the devotion cannot be themselves. It's not them. It's not simply a rite of passage where they have to prove something to their colleagues that they were able to touch the devotion. It overcomes fanaticism when the focus of the entire performance becomes a deepening of a relationship with Christ. And I think every devotee would want that. No devotee would actually look at this as mere Spartan medals that they have overcome an obstacle or things like that, but instead as a form of really, really trying to express their faith in God by touching the image.
Yeah, I don't think an ordinary person would go through this if they didn't derive some kind of benefit from it. Right?
Of course, there's a benefit that goes with it, no? Like, it can be psychological, but more importantly, it's a performance of a panata. And panata for us Filipinos is a deep vow rooted in a favor that was once received or a favor that is still to be received. And I think that is where the dynamics of the devotion really is rooted on. No? The fact that this is not only about me, this is about somebody else, maybe my relative or maybe my child or maybe a favor that I'm asking for the family.
Now, for you personally, you said over the past few years, you have become a devotee precisely because of your study of the Black Nazarene. What turned you from an observer and an academic into somebody who's actually devoted to the Black Nazarene himself?
For somebody who studied theology, it's so easy for us to actually front at the devotion as something unlearned, uneducated, something raw. I even referred to it as just rowdy. But when I went to Quiapo and tried to really listen to the stories of all those who participate in devotion, I see in it a certain authenticity that is actually missed when you're only reading books, when you're only trying to view them from a particular perspective. A few years ago, I watched Tirador, this movie basically opened to me the reality of the play between everyday Filipino life and the performance of the devotion to Quiapo, and how for an ordinary Filipino, there's no contradiction between their everyday affairs and their performance of religiosity.
All right. Thank you for that. We do appreciate your professional and personal insights, Mark. We just talked to theology and philosophy professor Mark Calano.